covered so far. I'm KK Madhvi, and I'm walking you through international marketing. So today we'll be touching on Unit 5, International Marketing Communication. So fundamentally, the structure is that you'll have introduction, communication mix. This will be followed by role of advertising, patterns of advertising expenditure, advertising and regulations, advertising media, standard international advertising, global advertising, and finally we'll close with the summary. So before we go further, let us try to understand what this entire subject is all about. So we are talking here in terms of international marketing communication. So fundamentally, when we are talking in terms of marketing communication, we know that it is the process of where a producer or a seller is trying to reach out to the customers. Now, the customers can also be known as buyers or consumers. We will talk about the differences in a later date. But for the purpose of our understanding, whether it is domestic market or international marketing, there is a very important reason for us to reach out to our customers. The reason is that unless we reach out to our customers, they are not aware of our presence. So we need to talk to them in terms of our products, the range of brands that are available, the services that we are offering, or even the ideas or concepts that we have to share with them. We may use different methods of promotion. We'll also be talking in terms of that when we touch more on communication mix. But fundamentally, the purpose of communication is to uh, persuade the customer. And in the process of persuading the customer, either to evince interest in our product or to actually complete the purchase process and make a purchase, there are various factors that affect the process. The most important ones that we have to consider at this point is the environmental factors. When we are talking in terms of environmental factors, it is not just the environment per se, but it is also a number of external factors and internal factors that may affect the communication process. So here, the potential buyer not only will receive the desired information, but should also be able to comprehend that information. So if we are talking to a customer and we are talking to them in a lot of jargon, or we are using a lot of technical words which may not be relevant for the customer. For example, if I want to buy a washing machine, I want to know fundamentally what the product is all about, the size, the color, factors like that. I don't want to know what is in the motherboard because I may not be able to comprehend it as a consumer. That is why we need to make sure that not only the desired information is reached out to the customer or the potential buyer, but they're also able to comprehend that information. So fundamentally, when you're talking in terms of communication, you have to consider communication mix. And what is this communication mix? To communicate with an influence customer, several promotional tools are available. And the most important and most common one is advertising, because this is the most visible component of promotion. But we also need to understand that this is only one of the many communication mix components that are used by firms. The promotion mix also consists of three other distinct but interrelated activities, that is, personal selling, publicity, and sales promotion. So, overall, it is advertising, personal selling, publicity, and sales promotion. So, let us look at personal selling. So, according to the American Marketing Association, personal selling is an oral presentation in a conversation with one or more prospective purchasers for the purpose of making sales. So here are a few things that we need to understand. As the very word personal selling indicates, it means it is a one-on-one or one to many, but it is at a known level. That means you are either face-to-face with the customer or you are in touch with them through a digital or a broadcasting means like say a phone or a laptop, and you are able to talk to them directly. Like how I am talking to you now over a Zoom call or factors like that. Something else can also be possible. So personal selling is also known as salesmanship, and it is used at every distribution level. What is important to understand here is the cost of personal selling is very high. So, unless the product is a high range, high profitable margin, or factors which have a lot of technical or technological elements ingrained in it, it may not make sense to go for personal selling. Say a lot of IT companies use personal selling to sell some of their products, but they equally use online methods. So whether it is personal in terms of face to face or online methods, um, different elements can be used. However, certain conditions have to be met. So when an industrial buying or large volume purchase is characterized by a large amount of money involved, like we said just now. It justifies personal attention. But say if I were to sell soaps, it may not make sense for me to reach out to every customer or potential buyer personally to sell soaps. So personal selling works well with high unit value and infrequently purchased products. Such products usually require a demo or their customer made or fitted when individual needs or involve trade-ins like I'm exchanging my old washing machine for a new washing machine, in which case it may make sense for personal selling. The second one that we need to consider is publicity. And what is publicity? Unlike personal selling, it's non-personal stimulation of demand that is not paid for by a sponsor, which has released news to the media publicity, and at the same time, it offers several advantages. First and foremost is because it's not paid, it means it involves low cost. Second, the material present is not recognized as paid marketing or paid advertising. So there is a higher chance of a buyer going for a publicity stimulated material or content because it is sometimes disguised in terms of an editorial or it has the approval of the editorial staff. So it has more credibility and consumers are more ready to accept this kind of information rather than advertising because they see advertising as a means of paid communication to reach out to them. So this is totally perception based and particularly useful in countries where it's difficult to buy commercial time or advertising space. Sorry. It can also be a case where it is a small company which is, say, in its early startup mode and may not have the means to go for proper advertising. Sorry. The third one is sales promotion. So, what is the technique of sales promotion? They are varied and numerous. The commonly used ones that we are all quite familiar with in one way or the other are coupons, games, contests, prize offs, sweepstakes, demonstrations, premium, samples. How many times have we gone to some new retail outlets and we have received some small samples to test out? That is also kind of inducing us to try out that product and maybe make a more serious purchase. If they see the shop owners or the retail outlets see that we like the product, they also quickly direct us to where we can actually make a purchase. So, sales promotion is, however, temporary in nature. It is not self sustaining because it is meant to only supplement advertising, personal selling, or publicity. It is not meant to replace them. And it is usually effective when a new product is first introduced into the market. It works well with existing products that are highly competitive. So, if you want to differentiate your product from that of your competitors, it has a distinct advantage. So it also makes sense when the product is low unit value because you don't want to give samples away which are highly priced. So there is also a possibility that there is a high turnover. So under such conditions, sales promotion is needed to gain that extra competitive advantage. And what is the role of advertising? So this is the fourth element of the communication mix. So, in developing and socialist communist countries, emphasizing production and distribution efficiently, They usually attack advertising as a wasteful practice whose primary purpose is to create unnecessary wants. However, we know that advertising serves very useful purposes also for consumers everywhere, irrespective of their countries, political systems, or level of economic development, etc. Why? Because the products are able to reach to the consumers with all its details only through advertising. Because usually, when we talk of advertising, we talk of a broadcast of the product features, the product branding, the product demos, which can reach out to a large group of people. So, in the 1950s and further after that, China has prohibited foreigners from advertising there because advertising was considered politically inappropriate. However, in 1980s, China itself changed its policy so that the Chinese population could be informed of the products available, just as in any modern industrial society. So virtually now all media are available for advertising. It could be in terms of billboards, department stores, display cases, that is the point of purchase or POP, as we know, telephone books, newspapers, magazines, journals, moving vehicles, and so on and so forth. If we talk in terms of radio and TV, you know that it seems that more time is being devoted to advertising than actual content that is being broadcast. So here when we are talking in terms of patterns of advertising expenditures, we need to understand that in one study, advertising to sales ratios varied across 15 countries. And what was the range? Right from 0.95 for Yugoslavia to 7.62 for Australia. These ratios were not related to population size, nor were they related to the number of directly competing brands within the firm, or even number of directly competing brands outside the firm. So advertising expenditures vary widely from industry to industry. Mars allocates 5% of the company's total sales to advertising. So imagine how expensive chocolates are. One question that often comes to people's mind is when Coca Cola and Pepsi are so known to consumers, why do they advertise so much? Because they want to stay top of the mind. So they want to constantly remind the consumers that they are available so that consumers can do a lot of impulse purchasing, or if they're reaching out for, say, a water bottle, which could be an indirect competitor, they could instead reach out to one of their products. So that is why the expenditure for fast moving consumer goods is very, very high in terms of their advertising outlay. So manufacturers of dolls and stuffed toys also maintain advertising to sales ratio of more than 15%. That's a huge amount. Whereas the manufacturers of certain non consumer goods, that is, industrial machinery and equipment, agricultural chemicals, they naturally do not advertise very much. They would rather prefer personal selling. So, on advertising, their outlay may be as less than 0.5% of their total sales. So, certain variables determine the size of the advertising budget as well as the size of the overall marketing budget. And the relationship between advertising expenditure and sales generated has to be well documented to make sure that whatever is being paid or used towards advertising or any part of the communication mix, it is being recovered well from the consumer's purchase point of view. So, according to the well publicized advisor models, that is ADVISOR, the size of an advertising budget is a function of sales. So, that is number of users and other participants, customer concentration, fraction of sales made to order, stage in life cycle, and product plans. However, the size of a marketing budget is a function of prospect customer attitude differences. Our the customers perceiving your product. What is their attitude towards your product? Secondly, the proportion of direct sales, where customers are directly purchasing your product from the company. Or third, the product complexity. The more complex the product is, the more it makes sense to go for, say, personal selling rather than a direct advertising, as it may not be able to reach to the customers in the way that is intended. It should be pointed out that the importance of particular predictive variables is not uniform across countries. Therefore, it's important to note variations in the different types of marketing expense when expressed as a percentage of sales across countries and product categories. So, advertising and regulations. So, advertising can be affected by local regulations in several ways. As long as we are selling within our country, we have a certain set of rules. But there are also a lot of rules in terms of how our products are being advertised across countries. What are the legal terms that the government has set forth? What are the socio-cultural norms that is being followed in that particular country? What are the consumers' perceptions and demand like? What is it that they are most familiar with? Which broadcasting media do they most consume? And so on and so forth. So, the availability of media or the lack of it is one example. That because that determines media time and space. Belgium, for example, prohibits the use of electricity for advertising purposes between midnight and 8 a.m., whereas German laws regulate TV advertising contents and limit advertising on the national TV channels to just 20 minutes a day, forcing advertisers to switch from straight on TV to private channels. If you all catch television, uh, you will well know in the Indian media how much of time is being devoted to advertising. Perhaps out of a 30-minute soap opera, uh, or series as it is called, perhaps 10 to 15 minutes is actual content, whereas the rest of the time is actually being given out for advertising space. Greece and South Korea banned the erection of news signs. Further, nationalism may intrude in the form of a ban on the use of foreign languages and materials in advertising. So you need to translate your language from, say, English to the local language that is being used in that particular country. At the same time, it is not just the government social norms, the host country, the country of origin, but there is also the advertising industry, which has a local self regulatory organization which regulates the style and content of promotional activities. As in the case of England, the Committee of Advertising Practice has issued new codes which require all non broadcast advertisements to be legal, decent, honest, and truthful. For instance, no medium may be used to advertise alcoholic drinks if more than 25% of the audience is aged less than 18 years. Children should not be encouraged to eat or drink at bedtime or to replace main meals with confectionery or snack foods. Regarding motor vehicles, speed or acceleration should not be the predominant message. Similarly, cars on public roads must be shown to not exceed speed limits. Even in India, if you see, there are a lot of regulations, both in terms of advertising of alcohol or cigarettes or any other pan or BD, uh, to a certain extent, even on national televisions and their channels. However, some advertisers have found certain ways to circumvent it. For example, instead of selling alcoholic beverages directly on or promoting them through advertising on channels, what they are doing is they're selling aerated water or regular mineral water, but the brand name remains the same. So the brand recall is high when the advertiser wants to purchase some alcoholic beverage because they're already familiar with the brand for a different purpose. So there are ways that people are circumventing the laws. However, that is not a healthy option. The legitimacy of comparative advertising has not been fully settled in many countries. So there are certain products where you say directly that my product is better than X in so and so parameters, and we may have seen it both on in newspapers, on TV, where they do a kind of tabular form and they show some ticks and say we have far more features to offer than some X product. So this is something which is still highly debatable and is not accepted in many countries. Now, a number of countries have complete bans on cigarette advertising. And interpreting the law creatively, some people have found a way to circumvent it. Like we were just talking in terms of alcoholic drinks in India, where they're showing mineral water as bottles with the same brand. In the same way, RJ Reynolds attempted to circumvent Norway's ban on cigarette advertising by advertising Camel boots instead of Camel cigarettes. So the same model, trademark lettering in the word camel was used both for cigarette advertisements as well as boots. But after a protest, the advertisement was eventually withdrawn. We have also seen advertisements in France where they're limited to a picture of a cigarette package with no seductor imagery. So it is just the restriction that they have placed in terms of the advertising. But what do the cigarette makers do? They create products such as Marlboro cigarette lighters and Pall Mall matches that are purposefully made to resemble cigarette packages because there is no restriction on how such products are being advertised. So again, it's a way to circumvent the law. In Sudan, for example, Philip Morris advertised by having the Marlboro cowboy hold a Marlboro lighter. Now, everybody knows how a Marlboro cowboy looks, and the immediate recall is that of a cigarette. So, people, irrespective of the model holding a lighter, will still be recalling the original cigarette ad. So, again, not a good practice. However, advertising media, when you're talking in terms of international advertising, it is a practice of advertising in a foreign or international media when the advertising campaign is planned directly or indirectly by an advertiser from another country. So, to advertise overseas, a company must determine the availability or unavailability of advertising media. Now, the different types of advertising media are number one, television. So, commercial TV time is usually extremely difficult to buy overseas. Why? Because it's not only very expensive, but it is also very competitive. The third factor is that the advertising time that is allotted to different channels internationally is severely limited. There may be also a restriction in terms of the time, that is daytime television or late night programs, and your product may not fit that particular category of viewers who are watching that product at that particular time. So if your products are meant for say uh, women, and you want to advertise your products at a time when they are most likely to watch television, otherwise it does not make sense. So in Germany, for example, advertising on television is permitted only between 6:15 and 8 p.m., except for Sundays and holidays. So the advertising time available totally is just 20 minutes. So imagine the number of advertisers who will be competing for that limited time slot. And the same goes in terms of Switzerland as well. If we talk in terms of radio, radio is no longer king of the media in the USA, but it retains its status in many countries. For example, India itself has seen a surge in consumers listening to radio, particularly while driving. So FM has become a stay in Indian scenario. So what do we see? We see a bombardment of ads all through the programs, and you hardly hear, say, for example, any songs or any related content, because most of the time is being taken away by just the ads. Similarly, in Mexico, for example, radio provides coverage for 83% of the country, which is huge, and it's popular for several reasons. A radio set is inexpensive, it is affordable by most, it is virtually a free medium for listeners, programs are free, the cost of operating and maintaining a radio are almost negligible. And then illiteracy does not apply for a radio. You don't need to be highly literate to enjoy listening to a radio. And as a communication medium, radio is entertaining, up to date, and portable. It also penetrates from the highest to the lowest socioeconomic levels, with FM stations being preferred by high income and better educated listeners. Not surprisingly, the radio commands the largest portion of advertising expenditures in a great number of markets. Let's look at newspapers. In virtually all urban areas of the world, the population has access to daily newspapers. So the advertisers may be one or they may be many, but at the same time, newspapers may also have a wide range or choice. Say, for example, again in the US, there are a number of papers, or UK, or even in India, in multiple languages. So many countries have English language newspapers in addition to local language newspapers. And English language newspapers are patterned more like the traditional American paper, with an emphasis on world, government, and business news. So it depends on the kind of product that you are selling, and also your listeners or viewers in the case of newspaper. Are they the kind who are educated? Are they upper class? Are they affluent, influential? Are they highly literate? So then you would want to target English newspapers rather than regional newspapers or even radio or television. Next one is magazines. Nowhere in the world are there so many and varied type of consumer magazines as there are in the USA. And magazines are of many kinds, right? Whether it's sports magazines, whether it is fashion magazines, whether it's magazines, whether it's entertainment magazines. There is every conceivable form of magazine that is available for the few and selected audience. Sorry, the advertisers to direct their campaigns to obtain reach, that is the total number of unduplicated individuals exposed to a media vehicle at least once during a specified time period. That's the definition of reach or frequency. Always remember these are two important elements that we need to consider. One is reach and second is frequency. The intensity or the number of times within a specified period that a prospect is exposed to the message or both. In Brazil, for example, there are very few magazines, and people read all three or four of them. So it results in duplication. So what does it mean? There's a lot of promotional effort unless frequency is the objective. Marketers of international products have the option of using international magazines that publish regional editions. So it could be in terms of Time, Business Week, Newsweek, and Life. In the case of Reader's Digest and other popular magazines, local language editions are distributed. Just a sec. So Alan Edmonds, for example, a shoe company, it's able to increase its foreign sales by advertising its shoes in the international editions of such magazines. When we talk in terms of magazines, we also need to understand, for example, a lot of airlines have their own in-house magazines, which also have a high level of advertising content because they are also again geared towards particular users. Next one is direct mail. So confusion usually arises when such terms as direct mail, direct advertising, direct marketing, and mail order are discussed. So we will go with the most common term that is offered by Direct Marketing Association or DMA. As per them, direct marketing is the total of activities by which products and services are offered to market segments in one or more media for informational purposes or to solicit a direct response from a present or prospective customer or contributor by either mail, telephone, or personal visit. Direct marketers can promote their products through all advertising media. They can solicit orders by making announcements on television or in magazines, usually with coupons or order forms. Frequently, marketers rely on direct advertising in media created for that very purpose. So, these media consist of direct mailings and all forms of print advertisements distributed directly to prospects through a variety of methods. It could be distributed door to door or on the street or even inside the store or placed inside shopping bags, on auto windshields, in newspapers, etc. As a pamphlet. Direct mail is thus only one kind of direct advertising media. It is not the whole and soul, which is in turn a part of general advertising media or the promotional methods of direct marketing. Of course, the use of direct mail is not limited only to direct marketing. With regard to ordering, for example, buyers can place orders by telephone, often with a toll free number. We see a lot of ads of Naptol, for example, on television, where they have channels, multiple channels devoted to them, and they advertise on TV, and then they call for a toll-free number, and they say you call this number and place your order, and we'll deliver it directly to your home, and you can pay after receiving your product. So that is another example, or through a personal visit, or even at a mall, or even mail. An order that is sent in by mail and fulfilled by mail delivery is called a mail order. One very popular magazine, that is Reader's Digest, is one great example which was being done in this similar format through a mail order. And that was usually being offered as, either as a trial basis or over for a period of 1 year or 2 years or 3 years or longer, as you like. So mail order is not a medium. That's what we need to understand. Rather, it is only one of several means that will be used to place and handle orders. An ordering method consists of one of the two components of the direct marketing system. So now let's move to outdoor. Now this is something that all of us are highly familiar with. So outdoor advertising includes posters, billboards, painted bulletins, roadside and store signs, electric spectaculars, that is the large illuminated electric signs. They are having a huge impact on the consumers or potential buyers. The reason is because of their option in terms of size, color, lighting, and they're set also in very, very strategic points where they're highly visible to potential buyers. Outdoor advertising is also frequently used overseas because of the low cost of labor in painting and erecting such displays. In addition to this, it is considered a free medium because an advertiser can simplify place its posters on any available wall. The bus stop shelter, free of cost. The cost is only involved in terms of actually printing of the posters and its distribution and sticking, but they're not really buying any space to put up their posters. So the practice also encourages one advertiser to replace other advertisers' posters with one of their own. So, when using outdoor advertising, certain rules should be followed. For example, illustration should be large, words should be simple, kept to a minimum, and a rule of thumb is generally applied here. They say what must be said, not what can be said. So, the key word is must. What must be said, not what can be said. So, when you say what must be said, you are trying to simplify the message as much as possible and communicating only the most essential features. Simple contrasting colors should be used, white or black or red or even blue in some cases. And then the typeface, that is the lettering, is also very, very important because it has to be clear, it has to be readable. The next one, and it has emerged in a very popular way in the last decade, is internet. So this has gained worldwide attention because one, it is global in nature. It creates both worldwide opportunities. At the same time, it has its problems too. It is unknown whether the law governing an internet promotion should be the law of the uploaded site or that of the downloaded site. And we also know that very frequently the internet allows us to route our access through several other countries. So I may be sitting in USA, but my IP may be showing that of India. So that further complicates the matters. So although all the other media allows marketers to a certain extent to restrict delivery of their messages, internet is an all or nothing proposition because either you look at it or you don't. There's no way to restrict once you kind of broadcast it, unless you are doing very targeted advertising, and that is still a paid form of advertising. But however, if you're going for a non-paid form of advertising, it becomes that more restrictive in terms of whom you can actually limit in terms of your viewers. Also, we need to understand that there are many domestic laws. For example, certain countries, like we said, India, does not allow for advertising or promotion of, say, alcohol or cigarettes across multiple channels. So, similarly, other countries, and these are not the only ones. For example, hand weapons are not allowed on, say, um, the internet. You cannot sell certain kinds of, medication on the internet. So, but if you see in terms of, say, Coca-Cola or Pepsi or soft drink or chocolates, they can very well sell on the internet. And not only that, they can also customize their ads to the local languages, either directly, or they can allow an option of translation, which will also be an easy process for customers to log in and check what the contents are uh, all about. Of course, we don't really need a translation for ads of Coca-Cola or Pepsi, but yes, certain products definitely make sense. So, screen, that is cinema. In virtually all countries, the cinema is a favorite activity for a social gathering. So, people are avid moviegoers because of the limited television broadcasting and because of people's natural desire to go out to a place of social gathering. So cinemas sell commercial time to agencies or advertisers. And the usual practice is for a theatre to begin its program with the showing of slides of advertised products. How many times have we walked into a mall and into a cinema hall and sat down to watch the movie and inundated instead with promos or promotions for the next half hour. And it doesn't stop there. Even in the intermission, there are a lot of ads that are shown. It could be in terms of ads, it could be in terms of newsreels or documentaries or so on and so forth. There can also be teasers or trailers of coming attractions, new films that are going to release in the next few weeks as well. So, cinema advertising has several advantages. It has the impact of outdoor advertising without the drawback of being stationary. So, it has sight and sound like television, but with much better quality. And further, advertising on cinema has a true captive audience. Now, typically, once you settle down to watch a film, you wouldn't get up just because there are commercials which are being shown on cinema screens. You would rather sit and wait it out. You may have some level of resentment. It may be a minor irritant, but most moviegoers are usually in a positive and receptive mood because they have gone to watch cinema. So what do? They calmly watch cinema, or they chat, or maybe nowadays check on their phone, but still the ads run and some amount of it is penetrated into the viewers minds. The next one is directories. Now these are not very popular of late, but however they are books that provide listing of people, professions and institutions. So there is a limited set of companies which are there in that particular directory. For example, an industrial directory, say, your local market has an industrial directory which is only pertaining to, say, electronic goods, or a directory which is devoted to semiconductors. So, or an IT hub which has only a directory consisting of software companies or hardware companies as examples. So, the popularity of cellular mobile phone presents another unique problem. Why so? Because the number of mobile phones have now exceeded the number of fixed phones. So, the directories are therefore not as popular as they were earlier. Rural media is another important element that we need to consider. So, in marketing or developing countries, marketers must understand the use of rural media. So, mobile units, for example, may be sent to areas lacking access to mass media. Such vehicles, what do? They can play recorded music or advertise messages over amplifiers or loudspeakers attached to a vehicle's rooftops. At a different level, we have seen that during the pandemic a few years ago, a lot of mobile units were being um, used to talk to consumers about the various ill effects and the precautionary measures they need to take during the uh, pandemic and not to fall for traps and the kind of home care that they can do to ensure that they're safe and healthy. So, a free outdoor movie may be shown during the festival while advertising is broadcast through loudspeakers to the captive audience. Sorry. In a way, such rural media are very different from the traveling medicine shows of the American past. But we don't have much of them. But we did have all these harikadas and burakadas where a lot of media was being used during those times to also promote certain products, but in a very very subtle way. What they used to do is they used to sponsor ads. They used to sponsor the program and carry huge vehicles or huge posters or banners they used to put up to promote their products in the guise of sponsoring this particular program or event. The next one is stadiums, where we find that they are not only appropriate, but also very have a high viewership. But at the same time, we need to understand that in stadium, it depends on the kind of matches that are being played. For example, soccer or cricket is something that, or even tennis, is viewed by a lot of people. But there are certain games which do not enjoy the same kind of large viewership. So it depends on who our ultimate users are. The other media that we need to look around is in terms of traditional and common, uh, in especially developing countries. They are advertising in specialities. That is a variety of inexpensive items. It could be in terms of pens, calendars, letter openers, visiting card holders, etc. They carry the advertiser's name, address, and a short sales message. So the cost may be less, but items are relatively durable. And there's every probability that such items are placed on the potential buyer's desk and they continue to stand as
Madam,
a
time
reminder.
over, madam.
Yeah, 5 minutes, please.
Okay.
Yeah, as a constant reminder. The next one is in terms of media mix. So there's no one single advertising medium that is available for all countries and products. The media mix has to vary from one target market to another. So it varies also depending on the kind of reach, frequency, and impact that we have desired in that particular country. And there's no particular legal restriction. So, standardized international advertising is an important practice of advertising that we need to consider because the same product is not going to be promoted in exactly the same way all over the world. So, a certain level of standardization is being promoted. However, there's also a controversy attached to it because of the kind of variation or customization that is required from country to country. And standardization itself has certain ambiguity. On what basis are you standardizing? Is it based on certain product types? Who's standardizing? Which country? Is it the home country or the host country? Who is it? An organization which is promoting that particular product and consisting of all its producers, who is actually setting the standardization. So that is also an important aspect to consider. The next part is in terms of global advertising. So there is a lot of criticism in terms of the myopic standardization that we have talked about. For example, Levi Strauss has switched from all localized advertisements to a pattern advertising strategy that provides broad outlines but not the details of the campaign. So, what has done by it circumvents all other customization or restrictions that may be applicable. So you are making one uniform standard product which doesn't require too much of speech or translation or customization or localization. However, this is not easy because you have to consider all countries and try to send out a general message. So, a general assembly campaign is a good example of Coca Cola. So, it shows 1,000 children singing the praise of Coca Cola because each McCann office has permission to edit the film to include close ups of a youngster from its market. So, McCann is the advertising agency. So, what do they do? There are 21 different versions of the spot, the same ad, but only the particular youngster who's prominent in that ad may be changed from country to country. The next one is the success of IBM subtitles campaign, which demonstrates that it's possible to integrate global and local action if the markets are similar and if the product brand is perceived similar in those markets. So, what we would like to conclude is by saying that in designing a global advertisement, a marketer should contain not only the content in terms of its localization and globalization, but also take into consideration certain attributes. And what are they? It should be visual, it should have universal appeal, it must be adaptation ready, combine both standardization and localization. It assumes both homogeneity and heterogeneity. It combines efficiency with effectiveness and it is simultaneously global and local. So these seven characteristics sound simple enough, but we need to understand that each of these elements that are brought together to create one single global advertisement that will work in any country is itself a major challenge. However, if you are looking to reach out to worldwide consumers, you also need to understand that your communication mix should be tailored to such an audience. So, in the end, we would like to conclude by saying a product, no matter how superior, should not be expected to sell itself. What we must do as producers or sellers is promote that product to prospective buyers in ways that can be of benefit to those buyers. So a product may be promoted through advertising, personal selling, publicity, or sales promotion. And although advertising is the most prominent technique, the other three methods are no less important. And ultimately, for promotion to be most effective, all four promotional techniques should be used and coordinated depending on A, what is your product, B, what is your home country and host country, restrictions, legal guidelines that are being set, what are the social cultural demographics of the ultimate potential buyers, what are your competitors doing, are there an industrial standards, is your product going to be sold as a one-off case or is going to be sold across different countries and regions which needs a certain level of standardization. So with this, we come to the end of today's session. And if you have any questions, you can ask me over chat. Otherwise, thank you so much and have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you.
Okay, madam.
Right. Thank you.